Did you hurt yourself doing CrossFit workouts? Watch this.
Our first caller is Frank from Montana.
Frank, what's happening? How can we help you?
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for taking my question. I really appreciate it. And I also wanted to thank you guys for all of your parenting wisdom and stories, because I'm a dad myself, have 2 sons. So it's always appreciated to hear your stories and adventures with your kids. So I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Right on.
So my question is about CrossFit style workouts. I started CrossFit about 11 years ago and have been engaged in some sort of fitness activity for the last 20 plus years. Started out strength training and found CrossFit about 11 years ago. And it kind of changed my perception of fitness and what I could do. And I really like the mental component to it and how it's, doing something hard and fabricating that adversity and mental toughness. So about 2 years ago, I suffered a shoulder injury, and I know it was from CrossFit and just the intensity level that I was going at. And that's when I found you guys in Mind Pump, and I sort of dialed it back and started doing some of your programming. I did HIIT, I did anabolic, and I did MAPS resistance, I think, but kind of off and on, never really stuck with any of them other than HIIT. So I recently started doing CrossFit style workouts again as my shoulders kind of healed, and I'm finding that it's much easier for me to get into the gym and get motivated doing these functional fitness style workouts as opposed to strength training stuff. So I wanted to get your guys' take on, my question was phrased as, how do I do CrossFit the Mind Pump way? And I know that the answer is probably you can't.
No, there's an answer to that. There's an answer to that. Did you know that we actually wrote a program in response to CrossFit?
As a performance?
Yeah, that's right. That's exact. That the origin of that program was, we came out on one of the first episodes. It's in the first 10 episodes, titled "Why Mind Pump Doesn't CrossFit." We stirred up all kinds of controversy and shit. CrossFit reached out and tried to threaten us over some stuff, so we did CrossFit Part 2 just because we're assholes like that. And then what we got as feedback from our audience was, hey, we hear you guys kind of bashing CrossFit. Well, what if we like the intensity aspect? What if we like the mental aspect that I get from it? What if I like all these? And they said, what would you guys do for somebody who likes all those things, but program it more effectively? And that is the birth of MAPS Performance.
A lot of those exercises, functional exercises that, a lot of CrossFitters love, are in there. The thing is, it's the arrangement of it all, the workouts, the rest periods, the focus, the intent of it, a little more specific. So in terms of not being so much of a circuit style training, but we're more trying to achieve a very specific type of an adaptation, because if you can kind of parse out, a lot of the elements of CrossFit, which, I've probably been one of the more vocal ones in opposition to CrossFit, just because it just muddies a lot of what I love about training as well. Like something that I think that, you're drawn to in terms of, performance style training. It's different than bodybuilding and what you find in conventional gyms and unconventional lifts and all these things. That kind of brought me into that realm. So this is why we created that, just to put a little more specificity back in the mix. So that way you take your body through these types of workouts to focus a little bit more intensively on multiplanar type training, for instance, right, or endurance, or power specific movements, just so that way you give your body a chance to learn it and get proficient in it, and then that carries into the next type of a workout that you're going to do following that. So MAPS Performance, I would say, is probably the best answer.
Look, Frank, if your question is how do I do CrossFit and get better at CrossFit, my answer is going to be go do CrossFit. Okay. Yeah. If your question is, hey man, I need challenging, hard, painful workouts in order to motivate myself, well, then I have 2 answers for you. One is the one that you need to hear. The other one's the one that you're going to like. Okay, so what you need to hear is work on mobility, work on control and stability, work on multiplanar movements, do MAPS performance. The one that you're going to like is going to be like MAPS HIT or MAPS OCR, something where you're going to go out, beat yourself up. And I read your question that you wrote into us. You said in the question, if you don't mind me reading some parts of it, that you were a moderately successful wrestler in your youth. Look, I'm very familiar with wrestling. And a big part of it is like enduring the pain and the suffering of the practice and the training and the mental discipline. Now, here's a challenge with that. You found success with that. It kind of became a part of your fabric. Now you're an adult, and I've trained a lot of ex-athletes. It's very hard to find the will to train your body when the way you learned how to train was as a competitive athlete. It's very hard. But I'm going to tell you something right now, and this is just side note. If you don't fix this in yourself, this constant desire and need to beat yourself up, and I can't get motivated unless I go to the gym and climb a mountain every single time, your body's going to eventually make you stop. So you're not, whether you listen to me or not, your shoulder injury was step one. Okay. So that was like sign number one. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to get more signs and they're going to get louder, and you're going to get into this position where either you're going to stop because you can't anymore, or you're going to be like, okay, I got to reinvent how I view exercise and training myself. Now, there's nothing wrong with challenging yourself. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? You just got to be smart about it, and you can't worship the altar of pain anymore because you're not going to get away with it. Plus, you got other stuff that's more important anyway. You got a job, you got kids, and you probably don't have the luxury of being able to, beat yourself.
There's other
like
competitive outlets out there too. And to, kind of reiterate, so like training for those types of competitive outlets, I look at CrossFit, it's a crazy sport. It's insane, and there's a way that you could do like a MAPS performance or be a little more specific as to what you need to, focus on going in to improve your overall performance in the CrossFit realm. However, that's pretty difficult because they kind of throw the entire kitchen sink at you. But finding if it really is about the competitiveness and challenging yourself and your body to build your body up and go through that process, and then allow yourself to perform at events and do things like that, I think would be a healthier option.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna challenge you a little bit here, Frank, because by the way, I know you're on the call right now, so it's going to be directed at you. But this is extremely common. Okay, so I hear this all the time from people like yourself, and that's that they go, look, I love the challenge. That's what I fall in love with. I love that it's hard. And my answer to that is bullshit, because the real challenge for you is not doing that. Okay. It's easy for you to go beat yourself up. And what you're trying to say is, hey, how can I do this thing that I like so much? It's easy for me. So the real challenge, if you really like challenge, is gonna be figuring out how to change gears a little bit. Okay. So if you really want to challenge yourself and you really want to see growth in all aspects, physical and mental, and really start to figure this out for yourself, I would follow MAPS performance to a T. I wouldn't add anything to it. I wouldn't ramp up the intensity. I wouldn't sign up for a race or do something crazy while you're doing it. I would follow it to a T, trust the process. At the end of it, then see how you feel, see how everything works out. And I believe at the end of it, there'll be a transformation.
I want to make something clear to the audience that's listening right now too, because sometimes when we have these conversations that we've had similar to this one, people think that we're like anti-intensity, anti-pushing the mental fortitude, anti those things, when it's like, no, that's built into MAPS performance. Trust me, you'll get to phase 4. You'll get to, and in phase 2, there's some areas there. So there's elements of that program.
It's the worship of those things.
Exactly. That's where people they go wrong with this modality of training, is they fall in love with that aspect of it and they marry it and they never leave it until their body forces them to. And so when we wrote MAPS Performance, it's like we really took all this information, feedback from people like, what do you love about CrossFit? What are these things? And we wanted to give you all of those attributes that you love in a program, but program it in a way that doesn't get you in these ruts or stuck in this one way of,
or injured.
Yes. And so we address that in that program. So it really was designed for the person that is drawn to that way of training. But like Sal said, the most challenging part for you is going to be the mental aspect. And because you have that athletic background and gear, it's easy for you to turn that on. Where it's going to be hard is knowing when, this is a phase in this program where I'm supposed to turn that off. and now I'm supposed to slow things down and pause, and because there's pause squats, and there's stuff in the program where and I know that CrossFit does program some pause squats, so it's not like I'm saying they don't, but there's a different mentality going into all the phases of performance that aren't the same as the way you train in CrossFit.
If you don't have that program, Frank, we'll send that to you. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have it. That's much appreciated. I hear what you guys are saying. The shoulder injury kind of woke me up, and I'm not a CrossFit fanboy. I work out we have a gym in our garage, so I'm not like going to the CrossFit gym, and it's not a huge part of, my identity, CrossFit, but shoulder injury did wake me up. I hear what you're saying. And for me, the mental getting into the gym to do CrossFit style workouts is at this point easier, which is what my question was. So I hear what you're saying, Sal, and that, the real mental challenge now is trying to figure out how to do something different. So I appreciate it.
No problem. And you're a dad, so I'm going to throw this in there, just a little extra. If when you start to question what you're doing, ask yourself what you would tell your son. How would you coach your son? And I guarantee you tell your son, listen, kid, you hurt yourself. We need to train differently. So take your own advice. That'll help.
Okay. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
You got
Thanks,
it, Frank.
Frank.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You got it. Man, it's the worship of the pain with the ex-athletes or the people who had developed that addictive relationship with
that's
it.
That's who's drawn to that sport.
Of course.
It's rarely ever.
That's who's drawn to
especially the people
CrossFit, Orange Theory,
especially the people that
training.
stick to it. If you stick to it, that's why you normally stick to it, because it's appealing. And I want to be clear too, because I know sometimes we can go on these rants and then it turns into and we're going to get it on this fucking YouTube channel. There'll be a bunch of people that are defending, CrossFit does, and then it turns into like you have to defend CrossFit. It's like, listen, if it's working for you, you love it, you don't have a shoulder issue and problem, and it keeps you consistent, and you have a good relationship with exercise, fucking do it. I'm all for it. Do it. Go for it.
We're talking about the abuse.
Yeah, and it's just because we've seen so much of it. I think we speak so loudly about it. It's like, if it's working for you, by all means. But this idea that it is a superior workout or it's ideal for most people could not be further from the truth. Okay, if it's working for you, you're the anomaly.
I just always like to present people alternatives because I just don't think they know that there's a way to get that same experience in a more intelligent fashion.
Well, there's the appeal where you're right, Justin, but there's also this appeal to the community aspect. That's where they hit it out the park.
Oh yeah,
that's where they just
hands down they're probably the most effective out there.
They built a culture.
Gyms, yeah.
They built a culture, and gyms did a crappy job doing
and that's
that.
also why they feel they need to defend it. It's also too why
You're defending the culture.
It's a lot like a team. I mean, it's very similar to the experience. Like to me, it's the same thing I got out of playing sports. Like you have a real tight team that depends on you to come in. Everybody's kind of watching your progress, and is part of that entire process. But for me, that's where I see a distinctive difference, because the other part of that for me was training in the gym, was then building up my attributes, which then I would see when I would go perform.
Listen, there's going to be times in your life. I'm going through it right now. I talked about it when Katrina was having a baby and stuff like that, where, my workouts need to mold to my lifestyle and my current season of my life. And if you follow a routine or a group setting where that's being dictated by the group all the time, it's just not ideal for most people's lives. Maybe a phase in your life or a season of your life, it's really good for you and it's doing great, and by all means enjoy it. But at some point, you're going to become a dad. Shoulder issues are going to happen. You're going to have these crazy work hours. You're not going to have maybe the full time to go to that class or to make that exact time. And so then, and you don't want to
be dependent on everybody else's motivation.
You do not want to be the person who has to have that in order to be fit or successful in that arena. You want to be able to, pivot and adapt and mold your fitness journey to your lifestyle.